It is often said that certain choices shape your identity for eternity. Indeed, I crafted one that continues to haunt my thoughts long after the day has ended. A thought I never envisioned I would entertain, much less bring to fruition. But here's the wildest twist. It caught me completely off guard. It began as a mere whisper. Innocuous indeed, yet it spiraled into a force that dismantled all my preconceived notions of who I truly was. Have you ever caught your reflection in the mirror, feeling a sense of unfamiliarity with the face that gazes back at you? That is the destination I found myself at. Following a singular choice, on a singular night, in a fleeting instant, perhaps a lapse of weakness, or was it a display of strength? The answer eludes me still. Discussing this remains a challenge, even at this moment. Yet, I share this in hopes that perhaps someone else resonates with the feelings I once experienced. Perhaps there is a soul poised at the precipice, gazing into the very abyss that once consumed me. This tale may prompt you to pause, or perhaps it will reassure you that you are not solitary in your experiences. That's the aspect that often goes unspoken, isn't it? The solitude. The kind that aches. The kind that lingers even when the house is bustling, or when smiles are exchanged, or when you navigate through the routines as if all is well. A loneliness that seeps deep into your very marrow. My life appeared quite admirable from an external perspective. A spouse, a daughter. A charming abode adorned with delightful curtains and a dog whose barks echoed with exuberance. Companions who visited during the weekends. Joyful laughter echoes through the dinner table. Images adorning the wall. Yet, beneath it all, I found myself fading away, piece by piece. It felt as though an unseen hand was meticulously erasing my very essence with a pencil, rendering me voiceless, unable to cry out for it to cease. And then they arrived. Perhaps they had always existed in my periphery, yet I had never truly seen them in that light until now. 3 individuals, near my husband, companions of the household, recognizable visages, recognizable voices. Yet, on a particular night, everything changed. A single glance, a single laugh that stretched into an echoing eternity, one drink beyond the limit. And in an instant, my universe shifted. What unfolded next was an event I never imagined I could achieve. Yet, I inquired of them. I inquired of each one of them. And I spoke clearly. I remained unperturbed. I didn't even murmur it as if it were a secret. I voiced it aloud, as if it were merely a trivial matter. As soon as the words escaped my lips, time seemed to freeze. The air grew dense. I found myself unable to retract my words, even if I had the desire to do so. That marked the dawn of the conclusion. Or perhaps the dawn of an entirely different chapter. If you find yourself still present, feeling a subtle twist in your gut or your heart racing as mine did that night, then I urge you to remain. I require you to listen to every word of it. Each chaotic, intricate, and achingly authentic moment that followed. You may form an opinion about me. Perhaps tears will fall for me. Perhaps you will find a reflection of yourself within me. Yet I assure you of one thing. This tale will linger in your memory. Subscribe now to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where we explore the intricate depths of the human heart, revealing that nothing is ever quite as straightforward as it appears. I am 32 years old, married for 11 years now. To be candid, the majority of those years seemed to blend together in a haze. It felt as though I was merely a character in a film crafted by another's vision, following a script penned by someone else, while I simply arrived to deliver my lines. Ethan, my husband, once gazed at me as if I were a spellbinding enchantment. That memory lingers in my mind. I cling to that memory, despite the sensation that it belongs to a distant past. There was a certain spark in his eyes during that time. We would linger into the night, sharing our thoughts on all manner of things, envisioning, strategizing, sharing laughter until we gasped for air. Now he hardly casts a glance in my direction. He arrives home from work, offers a brief nod in my direction, plants a kiss on the crown of Mila's head, and then vanishes. Whether it's in his office, the garage, or lost within an urgent email thread on his phone, there's always something demanding his attention. Yet it lingers, though not for my sake. Our abode is quite pleasant, pristine, neat and orderly, cozy, a location that captivates the eye in photographs, yet leaves an emptiness in the heart as you wander its spaces. All is as it should be. All but me. On certain days I drift through life like a specter. As I fold the laundry, the aroma of dinner wafts through the air, while I assist Mila with her homework, weaving together the threads of our evening routine. I embody the character. I excel at it. Yet within I sense a desperate cry echoing into an empty abyss. Mila is 9 years old. She radiates brilliance. Perceptive. Excessively perceptive. Occasionally I notice her gaze upon me, even when I believe she is absorbed in her coloring books or lost in the world of cartoons. It's as if she senses that something isn't quite right. It's as if she can perceive the unspoken truths lingering in the silence that envelopes her parents. The weekends arrive. The flight of Ethan. The mechanism of renewal he possesses. Evenings filled with games. Barbecues. Crafted brews. His closest companions arrive with unwavering regularity. Jared, Liam, and Chris. The lads, the 3 companions who have stood by his side since their college days. Each one possesses their own peculiarities. Jared possesses an undeniable charm, perpetually accompanied by a captivating tale and a playful grin. Liam possesses a certain quietness, a reserved demeanor, yet there is an undeniable confidence that emanates from him. Chris, he's the one with the humor. Perpetually weaving humor into every moment, forever wearing a smile as if privy to secrets that elude everyone else. When they arrive, it's as if Ethan transforms into a different person entirely. Not the partner who only brushes against me for a fleeting farewell. He laughs, encircling them with his mirth. He speaks. He arrives, and I find myself simply existing in that moment. Embracing the role of a gracious host. Replenishing beverages, unveiling a selection of delightful snacks. Feigning my inclusion in the merriment. Yet, in truth, I am merely the ambient sound that fades into the background. At times, I found myself embodying the role of a waitress rather than that of a wife. Grinning at the table, masking the solitude that lingered. Consuming it as if it were a sweet treat. It was not always this way. In those early nights, laughter echoed among us, weaving a tapestry of shared joy. I experienced a sense of belonging. Noticed, yet as time passed, even that transformed. Ethan began to withdraw into his own world, and I, on the other hand, became increasingly aware of the way Jared's gaze lingered on me when he believed I was oblivious to it all. Liam had a way of inquiring about my well-being that felt genuine, even when I offered the usual courteous response. Chris had a remarkable ability to evoke laughter from me, surpassing even the joy Ethan had brought in years. They were familiar figures. They were hardly more than strangers. These were individuals intimately familiar with our family, well acquainted with our daily rhythms, who observed the blossoming of our daughter through the years. They recognized the timbre of my voice in moments of fatigue. They were aware when Ethan dismissed me, even if the words never escaped their lips. In those fleeting moments, an unfamiliar sensation began to stir within me. Not for any of them specifically, but for the emotions their attention evoked within me. Observed, seeking, observed. Once more, I find myself donning lipstick on Saturdays, merely a touch. I began adorning my ears with earrings even before they arrived. Not out of a desire to impress anyone, that is precisely what I conveyed to myself. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware. I longed for someone to see me, to suggest that I appeared quite pleasant, to serve as a reminder of my own existence. And so they did. Not everything happened simultaneously. Not in any discernible manner. Merely, small details. A kind word offered in praise. A gaze that lingered for just a moment too long. A hand that grazed my own without necessity. And what of Ethan? He remained oblivious to it all. Perhaps he did, yet chose to remain indifferent. I had no plans in mind. I failed to consider the future. Yet, amidst the quietude of my daily existence, I felt the earth begin to tremble beneath my feet. It was inevitable that I would eventually falter. It was a Saturday like any other. The backyard was alive with the crackling flames of the grill. Soft melodies drift through the air. Beers are cracked open. Mila sat in her room, immersed in whatever she was watching through her headphones, just as she always did when the guys were around. At the kitchen counter, I found myself immersed in the rhythmic motion of slicing vegetables. Ethan entered, phone pressed to his ear, his eyebrows furrowed as they had been lately. I paid little mind to it until he turned to me and said, "I've got a run emergency at the office. It shouldn't require much time." He didn't even linger to savor the meal I had been preparing all afternoon. He snatched his keys, brushed a kiss against the air close to my cheek, and departed. The door is shut. The engine roared to life. Vanished. I lingered for a moment, knife clutched tightly, absorbing the stillness that enveloped me after the car had departed from the driveway. Suddenly, the sound of laughter drifted in from the backyard. Jared was boisterous and untroubled, as if the weight of the world never truly touched him. A richer chuckle escaped Liam, while Chris bellowed something absurd. With a gentle motion, I smoothed down my dress, inhaled deeply, and stepped outside. It would be nice to claim that I was taken aback by what unfolded next. Yet, if I'm truthful, a part of me had been anticipating it all along. Initially, all seemed perfectly ordinary. I unveiled the tray. Jared snatched it from my grasp before I could place it down, tossing out a quip about my being too exceptional to be wed to Ethan. I chuckled softly, just enough to allow the moment to drift by. Yet, he leaned in slightly, allowing me to sense the warmth of his breath against my neck. "You know," he remarked, "if Ethan fails to recognize your worth, there will be others who will." It wasn't the language. It was in the manner of his utterance. He moved slowly, exuding confidence, his gaze firmly fixed on mine as if challenging me to reply. I chuckled it away once more, attempting to feign that it was innocuous. A jest, yet an unmistakable change lingered in the atmosphere following that moment. A transformation sensed before it is fully grasped. Liam fell silent. Throughout the remainder of the evening, he averted his gaze from mine. He wouldn't even meet my gaze when I extended the offer of another drink. The silence conveyed a depth of meaning that words could never capture. Then Chris began to observe me closely. Truly observing. Not in an unsettling manner, simply perceptive. As if he were examining me closely. It was as if he had just become aware of nuances he had previously overlooked. As the evening wore on, I found myself wiping down the table. Chris stood next to me, assisting in gathering the scattered dishes. My fingers grazed his and it felt like nothing at all, only a hint. Only flesh against flesh. Yet he remained close, not immediately. Simply clung to the moment just a heartbeat longer. It was more than merely the words that escaped Jared's lips. It was in the way Liam averted his gaze. It was in the way Chris lingered. It was a reflection of my emotions, in the very heart of it all. Seeking, yearned for, as if a long-forgotten illumination had been restored to a space that had languished in shadows for ages. As I settled into bed that night, I found myself beside Ethan, who had already drifted off into slumber. He stood with his back turned toward me, inhaled deeply, utterly oblivious, and I found myself continually drawn to Jared's gaze, listening to the sound of his voice, recollecting the essence, the manner in which he suggested that another might value me. What one must understand is, I felt no guilt. Not at that moment. A sense of awakening washed over me, as if a part of me had awakened, stretching and yawning after a prolonged slumber. I found myself pondering, was it truly wrong to desire to be desired? Was it inappropriate to find pleasure in it? That night, I remained firmly within the bounds of propriety. Not in a physical sense, yet in my mind, I journeyed to the very end. Once that thought took root, it clung tightly, refusing to release its grip. It began to flourish, silently, gradually, yet profoundly. In the aftermath of that night, a transformation unfolded. Yet it was a change that resonated solely within me. Ethan remained oblivious to everything around him. No alterations occurred on his side. He continued to leave his dirty socks strewn across the floor, neglected to inquire about the events of my day, and tapped away at his phone as if it possessed greater significance than the melody of my voice. He would arrive home, greet Mila with a casual hello, perhaps suggest what to defrost for the following evening's meal, and then slip away into the realm he retreated to once the office door clicked shut behind him. I once rapped my knuckles against that door back in the days when hope lingered that we might mend what was broken. At this moment, I hardly gave it a second look. What was the purpose? Yet, my thoughts were a cacophony, more resounding than it had been in years. Thoughts of Jared lingered in my mind. Concerning that appearance, there was a striking confidence in his voice, the implication woven into his speech. Liam's silence spoke volumes, and the guilt reflected in his eyes revealed that he, too, was grappling with unspoken emotions. And Chris, that moment when our fingers brushed against each other, the gentle embrace of softness, the essence of curiosity, each one was uniquely distinct. Jared, the audacious spirit, brimming with confidence and that playful allure. Liam, the silent guardian, with deep eyes that appeared to perceive far beyond his words. And Chris, with a spirit of mischief and spontaneity, would seize your hand and lead you into the shadows, never pausing to inquire about the destination. I began to observe details I had previously overlooked. Jared's forearms, revealed as he rolled up his sleeves, commanded attention. Liam's voice, when he spoke, was soft and delicate, reminiscent of a gentle whisper. Chris's laughter, untamed and liberating, pierced the stillness in ways Ethan's never could. And I loathed myself for it. Yet, just for a fleeting moment, for it was then that the longing returned, more resilient, Is it truly so misguided to desire recognition? To desire for someone's gaze to rest just a moment longer? To experience beauty when it has eluded you for years? In the mirror, I would steal a fleeting glance at my reflection, lips more voluptuous than I recalled, eyes deepening in hue, a body that had grown softer, adorned with curves that remained untouched by anyone. I would gaze for an extended moment. At times, the reflection staring back at me felt like a stranger. At other moments, I beheld her as if it were the first time in ages, and I pondered, if they perceive her, why does he remain oblivious? What actions led to my invisibility? A sense of guilt began to seep in. I would shake my head, splash cold water on my face, and remind myself of my role as a wife, a nurturing figure, a woman who pledged her promises. Yet those thoughts were fleeting. For it was not long before the fantasies began to unfold, absurd, untamed, unimaginable daydreams. Jared strides in, pressing me against the counter, the space between us charged with unspoken tension, all while Ethan remains oblivious elsewhere. Liam slipped into the kitchen behind me, his lips meeting mine before I had the chance to utter a single word. As Chris drew me onto his lap, laughter still echoing around us, he leaned in close and whispered, "I've been waiting for you to notice." And I loathed that it stirred a sense of vitality within me. I despised the way it stirred any emotion within me. Ethan remained faithful to me. He kept his voice steady. He neither lied nor vanished, nor did he strike or betray. He had simply vanished. Emotionally absent. Remote, unfeeling. I felt as though I were an integral part of the home, as if I were merely a piece of furniture. And yet, here I found myself, betraying him in my thoughts each and every day. It felt as though I had been starving, and then in an instant, the table overflowed with abundance. Each fleeting gaze, each recollection, each night, I find myself lying awake next to a man who never extends his hand toward me. It began to accumulate within me, a blaze I was powerless to extinguish. It was a source of disappointment for me. Yet, I felt no remorse. For the first time in what felt like ages, I experienced a genuine emotion, even in the face of danger. Even if it were misguided, even if it marked the dawn of my unraveling, my journey began with modest steps. I reassured myself that it posed no threat. For the upcoming weekend gathering, I selected a different dress, nothing overly revealing, merely a touch lower at the neckline, a tad snugger at the waist. An item I had not donned in ages. I applied lipstick once more. It is not red. Subtlety is key. Just enough to sense that I existed in the world. As I stepped into the backyard, tray of drinks in hand, a sensation washed over me. Jared began with a sweeping gaze, then halted, taking in the scene before him. His smile arched in a manner that revealed he was aware. Chris let out a soft whistle, his eyebrows arching in that familiar playful manner. And Liam, he gazed at me, truly gazed, before swiftly averting his eyes. The impact of that reaction resonated more profoundly than I had anticipated. I did not engage in any flirtation. Not quite. Initially, not at all. I simply hung back as I spoke, maintained eye contact for an extended duration, chortled a bit more heartily at their quips. As I glided past Jared, my hand gently grazed his shoulder. Everything pure and untainted. Matters that might be rationalized. Yet, deep down, we were all aware of the unfolding reality. The subsequent week, I contributed a bit more. Come, sit a little nearer. Allow my knees to brush against Liam's beneath the table. I feigned ignorance as Chris's eyes fell and lingered. Jared began to interject with subtle remarks. Remain illuminated, remain. Humor. Infused with a fresh vibrancy now. And I nourished it, not out of a desire to be unkind. Not out of a desire for attention merely for its own sake. I nourished it for there was a certain warmth in being desired. The silence in my marriage had become deafening, and I found myself yearning for something, anything, to mask its overwhelming presence. On a particular night, Ethan found himself racing against the clock. Once more, he had sent a message, trapped at the office. Proceed in my absence. It was merely I and them in that moment together. By that time, we had indulged in a few drinks. The laughter had become unrestrained, languid. With my second glass of wine in hand, I found my defenses slipping in ways I hadn't anticipated. But the specifics of the joke escaped me. I found myself uttering it in an unexpected moment. Imagine if we just embraced spontaneity and embarked on an adventure one day, something utterly wild and unexpected. Each and every one of us, only a single time. The words lingered, suspended in the space that separated us. I burst into laughter immediately afterward, handled it with finesse, as if it were merely another provocative remark intended to incite a reaction. Yet, none of them responded with laughter, not immediately. Jared inclined his head, that lopsided grin transforming into a more somber expression. Chris's eyelids fluttered momentarily, gazed at Liam. Liam. He remained utterly oblivious, his gaze fixed elsewhere. The ensuing silence was anything but awkward. The atmosphere crackled with energy. It's that fleeting instant before a tempest, when the atmosphere shifts, and an unspoken anticipation hangs in the air, signaling that change is imminent. Then Jared let out a soft chuckle. Resounding. Excessively loud. "You're dangerous," he remarked, jabbing his beer bottle in my direction. Ethan remains blissfully unaware. At that moment, laughter erupted from everyone. It shattered the unease. We have progressed onward. Humor was exchanged. The music has been altered by someone. I polished the glasses to a gleaming finish. As per usual, yet I sensed it. They certainly did as well. A change had occurred once more. That night I slipped into bed, a restless heat coursing beneath my skin, whirring with energy. My heart raced as if I had committed a transgression. Yet, the reality was that I found it impossible to suppress my smile. Ethan lay in slumber as I quietly slipped beneath the covers. Confronted by the wall, inhale, exhale, a steady rhythm. Unfazed. I reclined, my gaze fixed on the ceiling, the lingering flavor of wine dancing on my tongue, the echoes of my own words reverberating in my mind. It did not seem like a jest. Not in my view. Just as I was on the brink of slumber, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I extended my hand toward it. A single message. From Jared. Only 5 words. "Were you sincere in your words?" I gazed at Jared's message, lost in thought for what felt like an eternity. "Were you sincere in your words?" My thumb lingered just above the screen. I might have chosen to overlook it. I ought to have. Yet, I responded with a single word. Perhaps. That was all it required. Subsequently, events began to unfold, swift, quicker than I had anticipated. Yet I did not intervene. I allowed it to unfold. Ethan's business trip was set for the upcoming weekend, just 3 days to go. Another day, another routine. Unchanged apathy. He filled his suitcase, pressed a gentle kiss on my cheek, and softly reminded me to tend to the plants. He never inquired about my plans during his absence. He didn't even mention that he would miss me. That was the final nudge I hadn't realized I was longing for. I picked up the phone and made the call. I chose not to extend the invitation to everyone simultaneously. The plan, if one ever existed, certainly did not unfold as intended. Yet, in some inexplicable manner, it unfolded as such. A single text transformed into 3 distinct pieces. One affirmation blossomed into 3. I ought to have called it off the moment I understood they would all be attending. However, I did not. The night descended. Mila spent the night at her friend's house, enveloped in the warmth of laughter and whispered secrets. The house remained enveloped in a profound silence. I lit candles, though the reason escapes me. Perhaps to feign an air of romance. Or perhaps to conceal the truth within the depths of shadows. They came each in their own time. Jared takes precedence. Then there was Chris. Then came Liam the last. The atmosphere was undeniably uncomfortable. Rigid grins, watchful eyes. Everyone stood at a distance, as if we were all anticipating someone else to take the first step. I filled the glasses with beverages. We refrained from taking a seat. Uncertainty loomed over everyone, leaving them adrift without a clear path or starting point. I embarked on the journey. I had always envisioned that if an event such as this were to unfold, I would possess a sense of control. Audacious. Formidable. Yet, as I stood there enveloped in that stillness, an overwhelming sensation washed over me, insensate. Nevertheless, I took the lead. As I made my way to the living room, I settled into a seat. I crossed my legs. Anticipated. Jared trailed behind. Then came Chris. Liam lingered in silence for a moment. I gazed up at him and murmured, "It's okay." It was at that moment the distinction faded, and then vanished into thin air. The garments were gradually shed, piece by piece. Then hasten. What began as uncertainty transformed into an insatiable craving. Caresses, palms, oral expressions, forms. It was a spontaneous decision. The scene was chaotic. A tempest of feelings surged within me, overwhelming and relentless. The intertwining of pleasure and shame was so intricate that I found it impossible to distinguish between the two. In that fleeting instant, a sense of being desired washed over me. Highly sought after, authentic. And then just as swiftly it came to an end. We reclined, our limbs entwined, inhaling deeply in a space that had grown unexpectedly silent, almost claustrophobic. Silence enveloped the room. Not even Jared, who was never short of a witty remark. Chris was the first to rise, his hand instinctively reaching for his shirt, his gaze averted from mine. Liam's gaze lingered on the ceiling above. I draped the blanket around me, despite the absence of chill in the air. And that was the moment it struck me. In the stillness that followed, a sense of disempowerment washed over me. I felt no sense of triumph. I sensed that I had ignited a blaze that consumed all I had ever understood. The stillness was overwhelming. Silence enveloped the scene and not a soul stirred. No one extended a hand towards me. As the hallway stretched before me, the door let out a haunting creak, slowly revealing what lay beyond. And I listened to her voice. Mila, mother? Her voice pierced my very being. Mother? Gentle. In a state of drowsiness, perplexed. I sprang up, tugging the blanket around me as if it held the power to reverse the events that had just unfolded. My heart raced with such intensity that it felt as though it might burst from my chest. Breath eluded me. The men stood motionless, akin to statues, silence enveloping them. I called out, "Just a moment, darling. Please return to your slumber if you would be so kind." My voice trembled. It lacked the resonance of my own. Her silence lingered. Only the soft patter of tiny footsteps echoed down the hallway, followed by an enveloping stillness. I lingered in stillness for just a heartbeat more. No eyes turned in my direction. There were no farewells uttered. One by one, they departed, silent as phantoms. Jared averted his gaze, never once meeting my eyes. Chris was the final one to depart. He lingered by the door, as if words were on the brink of escaping his lips. Yet he chose not to. With a silent nod, I stepped into the embrace of the night. And then it was only me. Isolated in a chamber heavy with the scent of remorse, I tidied up. I polished the wine glasses, fluffed the couch cushions, and scrubbed the floors as if I could erase the memories of what transpired. Yet, I found myself unable to cleanse my thoughts. The vision of Mila lingering in the hallway refused to fade from my mind. Her perception remained a mystery to me, as did the depths of her understanding. Yet she perceived something. I sensed it deeply. As dawn broke, her words were few and far between. She averted her gaze from mine. I inquired about the sleepover and she merely shrugged in response. I presented her with pancakes, but she replied that she wasn't hungry. In that silence, it eclipsed the impact of any scream. Several days slipped by. Jared faded into silence, never to reach out again. Utterly disappeared. No text. No need for an apology. Silence prevails. Liam dispatched a single message. Such an occurrence was entirely unwarranted. I kindly ask that you refrain from reaching out to me in the future. The following day, Chris sent a message. Merely a pair of words. May we engage in a conversation? I chose not to respond. Words eluded me. What words might I choose to express myself? Ethan returned home the following evening. Strolled in as if nothing was amiss, yet there was an unmistakable quality about him that set him apart. He cast his gaze. Gentler, more engaged. He inquired about my well-being. He expressed that he missed me. He kissed me as he once did, long ago. For a brief moment, I stood still. In that moment, I pressed my lips against his, for I found myself at a loss for any other course of action. As the night deepened, he settled beside me, drawing the blanket up to his chest, then hesitated. Inhaled the scent of the pillow. "Have you altered the detergent?" he inquired. I was not truthful. Indeed. A fresh fragrance. He gave a slight nod and surrendered to the embrace of sleep. For hours, I found myself gazing at the ceiling, battling the urge to let tears fall. Yet, the fragrance was not a product of detergent. It emerged from the surface of the skin. From hands. From the evening I longed to turn back time, yet found myself unable to do so. The subsequent days unfolded as if traversing a landscape of quicksand. Each smile was a mask, carefully crafted and worn. Each word seemed insincere. Mila remained silent. Remote. She ceased to join me at the table. She had outgrown the desire for bedtime stories. She no longer embraced me as she once did. That distance shattered me in ways I never anticipated. Tears streamed down my face as I stood under the cascading water in the shower. Initially in hushed tones. Then came the full-on sobs, the kind that makes your chest rise and fall as if the very walls are closing in around you. I found myself unrecognizable. The sight of my reflection had become unbearable. I would steal a glance and quickly avert my gaze, for I loathed the reflection that met my eyes. It wasn't merely my visage, but the essence of what I had transformed into. I had requested it. I had desired it. What comes next? At that moment, I found myself unable to meet my daughter's gaze. Rest eluded me, was unable to eat. Every moment of that night echoed in my mind, a relentless loop of memories. With each inhalation, each and every word, each decision, I believed it would grant me a sense of strength. I believed it would mend the fractures within me. Instead, it fragmented all that remained. I began to ponder inquiries that I was reluctant to confront. Did it hold any value? On that particular night, the decision at hand, in that instant I stepped over a threshold from which there is no return. Did it offer me anything that endured beyond the guilt it instilled? Or did I merely incinerate my existence to experience a fleeting glow of comfort? I once believed that I was the one left behind in the marriage, the individual who slipped quietly into the shadows, the solitary soul who bore their pain quietly as the world around them continued unabated. Yet now, at that moment, uncertainty crept in. Had I unwittingly taken on the role of the antagonist in the narrative of my existence? I felt an urge to place the blame on Ethan. His absence lingered in the air, his icy demeanor, their diversions. Perhaps he was intertwined with it all. Perhaps his indifference sowed the initial spark. Yet it was I who nurtured it with water. I was the observer of its growth. I was the one who allowed it to flourish into something sinister. I began the practice of journaling, seeking to unravel the complexities of my emotions, inscribing thoughts that remained unspoken in the realm of my voice. The pages filled swiftly, yet none of it brought me solace. I went ahead and scheduled a session with a therapist. I believed that by voicing it to an unfamiliar face, perhaps the weight of shame would dissipate. Perhaps the truth would carry a lighter weight once it was finally voiced. Yet it did not. It lingered in the room, a wisp of smoke coiling around my throat. Ethan persisted in his efforts. That was the very thing that exacerbated the situation. One evening he returned with a bouquet of flowers. Golden tulips. It holds a special place in my heart. He mentioned that he saw them and was reminded of me. He pressed his lips gently against my cheek, prepared the evening meal, inquired about my emotional state. A smile graced my lips. I claimed to be all right. And within I shattered once more. How can you stand beside someone who is finally present, after having already dismantled what you were hoping they would mend? I observed him scrubbing the dishes, and a thought crossed my mind. He remains blissfully unaware of the depths to which I have descended. He was finally making an effort while I had long since surrendered. And then there was Mila. Sweet, bright-eyed Mila, who no longer requests me to braid her hair, who began to embrace her father for a longer duration than she embraced me, who regarded me as if I had transformed, even though she was unaware of the reasons behind it. I found myself pondering, will this leave a mark on her soul? Even if she remains oblivious to the truth, will she bear this unseen scar? Will she navigate her childhood sensing the subtle shift between her parents, forever unaware of its origins? What notions of love will she hold dear? What is loyalty? What should one do when a beloved ceases to express their affection as they once did? That thought haunted my nights more than any guilt, any silence, or any recollection of my actions. For I did not merely betray Ethan. I turned my back on the version of myself that Mila believed in. And that is what shatters me the most. I yearned for a sense of vitality. Yet now an emptiness envelopes me. There exists a vast, echoing space within me where something once thrived. I grasped for something, anything that might restore my sense of completeness. And instead I shattered completely. The truth, it seems, has lost its weight in this moment. Some mistakes simply exist without the wisdom of lessons attached. Some simply depart, leaving you shattered. Have you ever found yourself at a crossroads, making a choice that felt irrevocable, even as the words left your lips? That heavy sensation in your stomach, that quiet voice in your head urging you to refrain. Yet you proceed regardless? Have you ever ventured beyond the boundaries not out of ignorance, but driven by a profound sense of loneliness, deep hurt, or an overwhelming emptiness that dulled your sense of care? For that very reason I did. Now I find myself grappling with a question I never imagined I would confront. Is redemption possible for someone like me? Is it possible for individuals to return from experiences like this? Not merely in their connections with others, but within the depths of their own souls? I'm truly at a loss. Yet perhaps you do. So I pose this question to you, the one who is listening at this very moment. If you have ever walked the path I have tread, or witnessed a cherished one navigate a journey such as this, I invite you to share your thoughts with me. I would love to hear your thoughts. Share your emotions with me. Your words could potentially offer assistance to another, perhaps even to myself. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Kindly, your voice carries a significance beyond your awareness. If this tale has awakened something within you, if it has prompted you to pause, to reflect, to perceive the world through a new lens, share it with others. Engage, share, and join the journey with Heartfelt Tales Unfold. What lies ahead in our upcoming tale? It may resonate on a more personal level. At times, the gravest error lies not in our actions, it's the very reason you believed you had to take that step. Cheating isn't always a reflection of cruelty, selfishness, or recklessness. At times, we stray from fidelity, driven by a sense of being overlooked. We find ourselves yearning for a deeper bond. We often persuade ourselves that a fleeting instance of desire holds greater value than an eternity of neglect. Yet, that is the deception. That is the snare. This narrative transcends mere infidelity. It revolves around a profound sense of void. It speaks of yearning. It explores the depths of despair when your heart seems to dim, and the lengths one might go to revive its rhythm, regardless of the price to be paid. If you find yourself observing this and sensing your own invisibility, yearning for authenticity, or struggling in a silence that appears unnoticed by others, I urge you to reach out to someone. Share it with someone. Seek assistance before you grasp the misguided hand. Some mistakes are final, offering no opportunity for redemption. Some regrets linger, refusing to diminish as the years pass.